now introduce our speaker, and I understand that, Mary, you've got your books, some books out there in the front here, an author we have here, as well as we have a talk coming up this afternoon. Dick, is that going to be at 12:30 or? Okay, very good. More to come. Mary Deioma is our speaker today. Mary had a near-death experience at 5 years old. And what was I doing in comparison? Other experiences followed. Her accomplishments include author of 3 books, I believe I saw 2 of them out there, Loved, A Transcendent Journey, Loved, a Life Review Journal, 7 Steps for Enlightenment. She produced a near-death experience radio show. She spoke at the International Association for Near-Death Studies conferences, and I think not too long ago. Her story has been featured in 2 nonfiction books on near-death experiences compiled by our very own David Sunfellow. You all remember him. And he wrote several books, and Mary is quoted there in Love the Person You're With, The Purpose of Life, and 500 Quotes from Heaven, all compiled by David Sunfellow. Please give a nice, warm fellowship welcome to Mary Deioma.
Okay, and I want to thank you for your lovely introduction. You went way deeper than I thought you were going to go. And I want to thank Dick for making this all possible and finding me and bringing me here to Virginia Beach. It's such a lovely place. I want to tell you a little bit about the course that I'm going to be giving after, and then I'll go into my stories. The course is actually based on the method that I used that helped me to get to a place to have my enlightenment experience. I did have a near-death experience when I was 5, but I afterwards forgot about it and lived most of my life in doubt of what spirituality, but I'll tell everything though. So when I was 5, I fell off a sliding board and hit my head, and my babysitter and my neighbor rushed me to the hospital, and I remember being face down on the hospital bed, and then I remember being up above my body, looking down, and I saw the nurses shaving the back of my head. And I was concerned because I didn't want a bald spot. And then I remember afterwards telling my mom, I saw them shaving the back of my head. And she just said, that's not possible. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And I forgot about it. I put it to the side, the back of my mind, and went on with life and didn't think about it at all until not even that long ago, I remembered it. So I did have that near-death experience, and I didn't even know what you call it when I did remember it, but anyway. But what I want to really share is how I went from being really doubting anything spiritually to coming up with this idea of doing an intentional life review, and then that prepared me to have an experience. I didn't know that's what was going to happen, but I just was looking for information, and I started to read other people's near-death experiences and anything spiritual I could find. I gave myself this ritual of reading at least 20 minutes a day, something spiritual, to keep that information flowing through, even though I had a busy life or whatever. I just want to keep something spiritual every single day. And then I came up with the idea of doing the life review, so then I started journaling my life from the beginning of my life. And I started to change. I started to begin to have spiritual experiences and have this presence of this voice that was telling me to prepare for something even bigger. And that brings me to the point where I had my experience. So at that time, I was engaged to be married to a man from Bangladesh, and he had gone to Bangladesh to visit his mother who was in the hospital. And he called me and said, I'm coming home in 3 days and we're gonna get married. So I was very happy and I was excited. And I was driving to work and I was singing. I got the joy, joy, joy down in my heart. So then I was like, devil doesn't like it, he can sit on a tack. Ouch. Anyway, that was my root chakra activation, although I didn't know that was what was happening. And later on in the day, I had my second chakra activation, which was cramps. And then the next one was, I just had this sudden knowing that he had been married in an arranged marriage in Bangladesh. I just knew it to my cellular level, and I felt like I was punched in the stomach. And I was like at work, so I couldn't really have strong emotions at work, so I kind of shut down my emotions, and I made it through the day almost, and I left about an hour early, but I started to drive home, and I was really upset. And I had just been exposed to Gary Zukov, who says to feel your feelings when you have them. So I decided to let myself feel it, all that pain. And I was driving, and I'm going to tell you in the beginning this time that my experience only takes about 1.5 seconds in physical time, but here's what happened. So I was driving, and I went past the point of crying. My heart was breaking, and I was like, I can't feel this pain much longer. How can I get past this pain? And I had this thought, what would Mother Teresa do in this situation? And the idea came to me, Mother Teresa would love anyway. So I asked myself, can I love anyway? And I found it in my heart that I could love anyway. But still, the pain was devastating. And then I asked, what would Jesus do in this situation? And the message was, Jesus would forgive. So I asked myself, can I forgive? And as I asked myself that question, I could see the situation from his perspective and from his parents' perspective, and I was able to understand where they were coming from, whereas before I hadn't been able to see that much. But just asking that question opened up that information, and I found it in my heart to forgive, but still that pain was devastating. And then I asked, what would Muhammad do? Because he is Islamic, so he taught me about Muhammad, and Muhammad's message is to submit. And with that, I understood it in a new way, to turn it over to God. So I'm driving my car, and I had this little zipper jacket, and I undid the zipper, and I imagined my heart going out to God. And as I imagined my heart going out to God, a beam of pure white came down through the sky, in the physical, came through the front of my windshield, and physically touched me on my shoulder. This was a physical thing that happened. And as that happened, a flood of divine love came down and awoke in every cell in my body with love and consciousness. And I was flooded. with all this love. I hope you can start to feel it, because I can just feel it every time I talk about it. It just flows through me. Every cell was like conscious. It's just a weird thing to try to imagine, because usually our consciousness is centered here, but it was like every cell had its own mind. So anyway, and as that beam came down, I had this realization, this memory rise up that was this aha. Oh yeah, I remember who I am. I am this love. I am you. And I felt this sense of I was precious to the divine, and the divine was precious to me. This personal connection. And I heard this voice say, everything will be all right. And I felt the comfort of that too. And my consciousness kind of split into several different perspectives. I could see the whole thing unfolding from the passenger seat. And from that perspective, I saw how crisp the edges of the beam were. And as a photographer, I know that light doesn't actually show you an edge of a beam of light. So I knew it wasn't actual light, it was spiritual light, it was divine light. And at the top of the beam, it was diffused more like light is, like you see the diffusion of light at the edge. Anyway, from the back seat, I was feeling all these emotions, all the love, all the comfort, all the warmth, all the healing. And then from my soul, I felt my soul lift out of my heart and merge into the beam, and I became the beam. And I rose up the beam, and as I rose up the beam, I could see the earth go down. And I reached the top of the beam, and I rippled out in concentric circles, and this white light around the whole earth in like the ionosphere, or I don't know what, but there was this love that was embracing the earth. And it was like all of the souls of the earth connecting to this atmosphere. And then my focus shifted, and I became all of the trees on the planet. And I could feel myself in the trees. And I could, like all the cells were all conscious, all the trees were all conscious, and all full of love. And then I could feel all the grass on the planet. And the energy of the love shifted to a very joyful, joyous love. And then my focus shifted again. And I became a rock on a mountain, and the earth, the whole earth. I felt the gravitas, the permanence, but still feeling all of this love. And then my focus shifted again, and I became the entire universe. Every cell of my body being conscious, now every star, every planet, every particle of dust, an immense, immense size. I am a massive, immense being of consciousness. And then my focus shifted again. And I was the smallest, tiniest particle that is the substructure of the physical universe. It is a matrix of particles in all dimensions, all directions, and each particle has radiant light, and each ray of lights mingles with all the other rays of lights, and they all connect in this unified field of love and consciousness in the physical. It is this, I was having access to all the knowledge that exists of all time. And then my focus shifted again, and I went to the vast void. And the vast void was filled with love, another 100-fold of love, immense, beyond description love. The void did not have visual information, but it had every kind of other information, like all time, all knowledge, all types of knowledge, and so much more that I have trouble finding words for, but I felt this immense love. Just thinking about it allows me to feel it again, and I love that. And I hope you could feel some of it, because that's what I'm here for you to share you that love. And then my focus shifted again, and I was back in my body, and I was like, what just happened? That was so cool. So that took like a second and a half of time, because I traveled that road every day, and I was able to measure, it was from this tree to this tree, and it was just a second and a half. But all while that was happening, there was a building at the side of the road, and it was a Barnes & Noble, and the sign was illuminated with golden light around it. It was not from the light being on, because the light was off. It was angelic light. I just knew that it was angelic light, and I knew the message was to go to the bookstore. And so I immediately turned and I went to the bookstore. And then I'm back to regular my self-consciousness, and I'm trying to grapple with what just happened and trying to figure out what's the next book, now what should I do? And also, any pain I had been feeling was completely gone, like it had never happened, like it literally never happened. It completely healed. And anyways, I was looking around the bookstore, and I'm trying to figure out which is the one, what am I getting a vibe for, whatever. And there was one that I caught my eye, and I picked it up and I looked at it, and it was about math. And I'm like, are you kidding me, right? You know I don't do math. And so I'm already arguing with guidance and not receiving it. And so I found another book, but it wasn't the right book. And that happened on a Thursday, so Friday I called in sick, and I went back to the bookstore, because that whole night, that book just kept flashing in my head and wouldn't let go. So I went back the next day, and I got that book, and that book was The Mystery of the Aleph. It was a little bit about Kabbalah, but mostly it was about the guy who came up with set theory. And he used, or what I understood from that is a model in math that describes this infinite set of infinite sets. So I'm gonna just go real quick on math. Don't get lost. Okay, so you take a number line from 1 to infinity. That's your source set. Then you can take a subset of the source set, like all the odd numbers or all the even numbers, And those subsets are also infinite. Even though it seems like they should be less than, they're actually equal to the source set. So we are subsets of the source set. That was the message. Every piece of us, like the cells in our body, are like the universe. I hope that comes through. I don't know, but I didn't explain it last time, but that's what that. But to have a model in math that reflects spirituality, for me, that was huge. I was like, okay, now I believe. No, I mean, like, there's no question now. There definitely is divine for me. So I want that to be my message that I can do, not for you, or for everybody, whoever's interested, that there is a way to go from doubt to knowing for sure. I know a lot of you guys already know. You're already experiencers. You're already in the know. But, you can go deeper if you want. And that's the main thing that I wanted. So also for me, as the doubter, I wanted to do it again. So I worked on trying to figure out ways to go back and have that direct experience of the divine in such a way that I know that it was repeatable. And so I continued with my research, and I discovered another non-painful way that I could promote as the way. Because, yes, a lot of people can just go right over to the divine space in meditation, but some people are not like vibing with meditation. Some people like to have a more active way. And there's also this, the system have processing your dreams, and through that, there's out-of-body experiences. So some people are like, nah, it's too far for me, I don't want to do that, but if that's something you want, then that's something you can do, so you can have that experience again. And so I had a bunch of out-of-body experiences. I put a lot of those details are in my book, but I think there's like 2 of them that are well, there's a bunch of them, but the first one was I had a time travel experience, and I went back to my childhood self, and I stood up for myself against the bully. And then I had another out-of-body experience where I went and visited my mom, and I noticed in her closet that she had sweaters on hangers, and she taught me not to put sweaters on hangers. So when I woke up from that, I called her and I said, do you have sweaters on hangers? And she said, and she didn't even doubt that I had just been there. She said, they didn't fit in the drawers. So, but anyway, that was a nice validation that I had actually been there. And I found out that the reason I saw her closet was she just had it organized. And then the next huge out-of-body experience that I did was one night I'm like, okay, now I'm really ready to go and have that spiritual experience again. So I during that night, I woke up at various times. I woke up at 3:33, and I woke up again at 4:44, and I woke up again at 5:55, and I woke up again at 7:07. So at each level, I feel like that was to tell me that these are like levels of heaven. And so the first one was like the garden, very much like the garden meditation that we did earlier. And then the next one was more like a city with education. And the next one was actually between 4 and 5, there's a membrane which you can't go through unless you're more evolved or you have permission or something. Anyway, the next level 5 is where there's group souls. That would be like where you maybe pre-plan your visit to Earth, where you meet with your group soul and you plan out what your life is going to do. And then as you go up, level 6, level 7, level 8, level 9, level 10, you keep getting more and more unified with the other souls and beings and angels and deities and all of these until I was able to go back to the void again. And in the void, this time I was in the void and not being one with the void. And I saw this being of light there. The second time I was there, the being of light was just awesome. All that love again, all that love. And anyway, I'll go into more detail about this being of light and how ordered it was and how perfect it was. And then, then after that, I went to heaven level 2, which some people would call hell, but it is actually heaven. And so I'll go into much more detail in my book. If you want to see that, because it's not for the place right now. And then heaven level 1 is an empty void, but it is like a way station place for people to experience. And so I did it again, and I was so excited to be able to do it again. And then hopefully then I can help other people to experience the divine in a way that is right for them. It's going to be different for everybody, but I was like, I did it again. So anyway, I believe that we are all love. We are all the light of God and love, and we are here to live our lives in all this wonderful drama that we have. In every detail and every experience we have is precious and valued, and you are loved. That's my message.